So the idea for today is to discuss the basics of China WFOEs. What is a WFOE? Well, if you have experience working with China, you know that WFOE stands for Wholly Foreign Owned Enterprise, and that a WFOE is basically the Chinese subsidiary of an overseas company. Why the basics? Because of course we could spend hours discussing the implications of setting up and maintaining a WFOE alive. But the idea for today is just to focus on the 5 main questions that come back to us all the time and the fundamental issues that you should take into account before setting up your WFOE. And the first one would be how complicated or easy is it to set up a China WFOE? To be frank, setting up a WFOE was fairly complicated until 5 or 10 years ago. It required a lot of documents, a lot of administrative procedures. But the good news is that the Chinese government has made lots of efforts to simplify the administrative procedures for the registration of a WFOE, which leads us to our second question about timing. Basically, the question being here, how long is it going to take for me to register a WFOE? Here again, until 10 years ago, I would say that it could easily take 3 to 6 months to register a WFOE. Nowadays, unless you are operating in a very restricted industry, and if you have prepared all your applications in a timely manner, I would say that the application procedures leading to the issuance of the WFOE's business registration will take somewhere between 3-4 weeks max until registration, until issuance of the company's business license, and then you would have maybe 2 or 3 additional weeks to register the company with all local authorities such as the tax department, the labor bureau, and so on. Third common question is the one of the registered capital. The question being here, is there a minimum amount of registered capital? Am I free to decide when I'm going to pay in my registered capital? It is the case nowadays. Basically, when you register your WFOE, you will express the amount of registered capital, and there is no minimum, there is no maximum, and there is no constraint as to the timeline for the payment of the registered capital. This may sound surprising. That was something very different in the past, but the principle nowadays is basically freedom. Fourth question, the one of the business scope. Scope of business. The question here is, okay, what can my WFOE do in China after it is set up? You have to pay attention here. The principle, how things work in China, is that at the time when you register your WFOE, when you apply with the relevant authorities, you will basically submit a proposal of business scope to them. They will review, approve, register this scope of business, and it means that this scope of business, which will appear on the company's business license, is basically what the company can do. So it is very important at the time when you prepare your application documents to define the right business scope. It does not mean that your business scope cannot evolve in the future, but if you want to change it after the company is registered, well, you will have to go to the local authority again and have your new business scope registered with them, and you will need to obtain a new business license. Fifth and last question is the one of the registered address. The question that we answer all the time is, okay, At the time when we register the company, do we need to rent an actual office, or can we just have some kind of virtual address? From a regulatory standpoint, the principle is that each company should rent an office and operate from its registered office. Now, in practice, there are ways to play around this principle, and local registration agents, even sometimes local authorities, will propose some solutions so that you do not have to rent an actual office. It doesn't mean that you will have a virtual office, but what it means is that you will sign a lease agreement for a very small office and for a nominal fee that you will basically never use. So these are the 5 basic questions. We will stop here for today, and the idea for the coming weeks, the coming months, is that we will take each of them and go into further detail. If you have any questions, in the meantime, feel free to contact us.